Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Burns, one of the organizers of our Sustainable Future Talks, which is online instead of us meeting under that beautiful cherry tree that's in the background in Tim's picture. So today we have two talks from our two different community groups. First, we're going to hear from Arian from Seed Savers, and then we will hear from Hannah and Isobel from Seed Change. And I'll give an introduction to each of those as their talk comes up. But first, let's have an acknowledgement of country. I would like to thank the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on today, and pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Okay, so the first talk, and I have my little intro over here. Let's see. The first talk is Arian from Seed Savers. You can see her there in her garden. That lucky girl gets to do her talk outside. Arian is from the Canberra Seed Savers Co-op. It's a not-for-profit cooperative and network for urban growers and farmers who grow, save, and share open-pollinated heirloom food seeds, effectively building a living seed bank for our community. And this, of course, in the future may be very, very important to us. So this is critical work, and it's great to have Arian here today to share some of these skills with us so that more people can get involved in this. I was listening to Bob Douglas and Julian Cribb yesterday, and I think if they're right, we're all going to have victory gardens right outside the door. So listen up, and I will turn it over to Arian. Now, did I pronounce that right? I didn't even ask.
Yeah, that's right, Arian.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much, Barbara. Thank you for that introduction. And it's really great to see everyone here today. And thanks for your interest and for coming along and joining in on this session. So I'm going to talk for about half an hour. I'm going to try and do some nifty stuff and, show you a couple of bits and pieces. Seed saving is something that, as you can imagine, I've been doing Seed Savers now for about 5 years, I think, and I can talk underwater about it for 7 hours without drawing breath. So I'm going to try not to do that today. And it's also quite a big topic, it's one of those really fantastic things where, it can be really, really simple, couple of tips and tricks, and you can be a seed saver this season. And that's what I'm hoping to encourage you to do. Or we can kind of really deep dive and get into lots of really interesting, more detailed stuff. We've only got half an hour today, so we're probably just going to, go over the top of a lot of this stuff. But without further ado, I'll get started. So I'm from the Canberra Seed Savers Cooperative. And as Barbara said, we are a network and a cooperative of growers, so backyard growers, balcony growers, farmers across the Canberra region. And we grow plants from seed. We focus on food plants. We grow food plants from seed. We share and enjoy the amazing produce that we get from doing that. And then we save seeds from the plants that we grow. We share those across our network. And we aim through doing that to build our community resilience and to build, as Barbara said, a living seed bank for Canberra. And that means that we want to keep seeds growing every season, get them adapted to the Canberra environment, help them to be adaptable to climate change and the impacts that that's going to have on us in coming years, and also help our community to connect and to build our interdependence and our sharing. So I just wanted to share with you a couple of thoughts about seeds. I first got interested in seed saving when I started gardening too many years ago now to mention. And what kind of attracted me was I started growing some seedlings from the nursery, and I thought, oh, you know, this is pretty cool. And then one day I looked up diggers online, and I don't know, has anybody here, put your hands up, has anybody seen the diggers catalogs and, you know, got some stuff from diggers before? All right, well, be warned, it's very addictive. I started looking through a digger's catalogue and noticed that you could get all these different types of varieties of food and seeds that you just don't get from a nursery, and you definitely don't get when you go and buy your food in the shops. And that kind of, you know, led me into buying lots and lots of seeds online. I've had an amazing collection of seeds. And as I kind of got more and more into it, I thought, you know, it's really interesting that seeds are the beginning and the end of a plant's life. So almost every plant that we want to grow, and there are exceptions to this, but almost every food plant that we want to grow starts its life as a seed and ends its life as a seed. And if you become a seed saver, one thing, it's a lot cheaper. So I actually saved myself a lot of money when I became a seed saver. But you really get into a different perspective and a different sort of relationship with your garden and with nature. You become part of what I like to think of as a millennia-old partnership between human beings and nature. And it's a really amazing, rewarding thing to do. The other thing that I think about is that, you know, seeds are life. So seeds are the basis of our food system. Almost all of our food can be traced to a seed, and that, you know, that includes the steak that you might have for dinner. It's gonna, you know, start its life eating grass, and grass is a seed plant. So without seeds, we don't have a food system, and we don't have, you know, that sort of basis of our life as a community and as human beings. I also think, and this is a very important thing for us at Canberra Seed Savers, that given that seeds are life and they're the basis of our food system, they're also a common heritage or a commonwealth that we have as a community. So for millennia, farmers, backyard growers have been growing plants from seed, you know, nurturing those plants, harvesting from those plants, saving seeds from those plants to replant again in the next season. And this has been going on as long as agriculture's been around, and certainly for our First Nations people for a very, very long time. You know, this is the foundation of all of our agriculture. So that, you know, that sort of relationship and that capacity for human beings to work with nature and to harvest the benefits and to feed ourselves is something that we believe at Seed Savers is an inherent right for all human beings. And one of the motivations I had with setting up Seed Savers was when I started doing some research, and I realized that over the last particularly 40 years, but kind of in the really recent past, we've lost, as human societies, we've lost thousands upon thousands of varieties of different plants, different food plants, and we've lost our real capacity as human beings to access that wealth of seed for free. So one of the not very good statistics, but a really strong motivator for me is when I think about the fact that now about 75% of the world's food seed stocks are owned and controlled by about 4 corporations. So 4 multinational corporations who also happen to be chemical companies in the main, which is an interesting thing, have that control over this basis of our food system, over our commonwealth. And when we get into it a little bit more, I'll kind of explain, you know, how that happens. But by saving seeds, by sharing seeds, by working in community together, we can get back that control over our food, over the source of, you know, our life and our well-being. And we call that seed sovereignty, having that control. It's a really important part of food sovereignty. So that's another thing that we think about a lot at Canberra Seed Savers is how can we harvest this bounty? How can we share it in our community? And how can we help more people to have the skills and the knowledge in order to be able to do it for themselves? Another thing that I think about when I think about seed saving is just the marvellous abundance and bounty of nature. She's really, really generous. I don't know if has anybody here grown a lettuce plant and had it bulk to seed? Have you seen that happen in your garden before? Yep, okay. So you know from one tiny, tiny little lettuce seed, you get a lettuce plant, and that's cool. But when that lettuce plant flowers, so what it does is it sends up a big stem right from the middle of the plant, and it sets flowers, and those flowers get pollinated, self-pollinating, so it does it, you know, with a bit of wind and a bit of movement, and some help from some insects as well. Once those flowers are pollinated and they set seeds, a single tiny lettuce seed will produce another 10,000 lettuce seeds. So that's that sort of amazing abundance that nature wants to produce for us is a gift. It's a thing that we can harvest, as I say, and we can share with each other. And to be honest, one of the reasons that I started the Canberra Seed Savers Network was once you start seed saving, you discover that you've got so many seeds that you need to make some friends to share them with, or otherwise you've got a bit of an embarrassment going on. So, you know, we want to harvest that abundance and share it with each other. The other thing that we think about at Canberra Seed Savers is that seeds are best and they're most, seeds are at their best when they're being grown season after season. So everybody's probably heard about places like the Scarlet seed bank in Norway. There's some really fantastic work done by experts to, you know, make sure that we've got seed banks of, you know, genetic material which is stored appropriately and are there for future generations. At Canberra Seed Savers, we don't aim to do that. First of all, we can't afford the equipment and it gets really technical and it's really important work that's best done by experts. But secondly, we think that seeds, and we know that seeds are best when they're grown continuously season on season. So seeds are smart. They're actually an amazing ancient technology. They learn and they adapt. So when you grow a seed in your garden this season and you harvest the seeds from the best plant that you've got, what you end up with over season after season of doing that is adapting those plants to be suited to your garden and to your local climate. And so given how different Canberra is to the northern New South Wales, for example, where you can get a lot of bought seeds from, a lot of commercial seeds from, or even Queensland. Given how different our climate is and how extreme our climate is, so we get those real lows, we get those high highs in summer, being able to grow from our own seeds and keep doing that season on season helps us to have a really robust local food system. So these are all some of the reasons why we think that seed saving is a really important thing to do. And I guess I've probably forgotten the most important one, which is that seeds are beautiful and seed saving is fun and it's really easy. And it is, if you've got kids in your life, it's a really, really excellent way for kids to learn about and understand how nature works and the life cycle of nature. So for all of these reasons, we love seed saving and we're a pretty informal bunch at Canberra Seed Savers. We want to encourage as many people as we possibly can to just get started and give it a go. If you've looked into seed saving before, and can I do a bit of a show of hands? Is anybody currently seed saving? Anybody giving it a bit of a go yet? Yeah, okay, couple of people, cool. when when you become a seed saver, you can, I guess, like a lot of things in life, it can be really, really simple. So the lettuce seed, where the lettuce bolts and, sets 10,000 seeds, seed saving can be as simple as letting that happen in your garden this season and watching. I think I saw a comment just before, watching as you get hundreds of little lettuce seedlings pop up all over your garden. You do that and you've just become a seed saver. Seed saving can be as simple as selecting your best first tomato, the best looking tomato that you have. And I can't demonstrate this to you today because it's not tomato season yet. And squeezing the seeds out of that tomato, saving it, letting it get really mature and really ripe, squeezing the seeds out of that tomato and just pasting them across a piece of paper, piece of kitchen towel, and writing on that kitchen towel the name of the tomato and when you harvested the seeds. That's seed saving. Seed saving can also get a little bit technical. And if you've looked into this before, it's quite easy, and I've heard from a lot of people, it's quite easy to get a little bit overwhelmed by some of the more technical aspects of seed saving. So if anybody's ever heard the term hybrid or open pollinated or heirloom or cross-pollination, when we start to get to that sort of stuff, there's tips and tricks to know, to make sure that when we're saving seeds, we're doing it in a way that means we're going to get great plants next season, and those plants are going to look like the plants that we planted this season. So it can get a little bit technical, but honestly, it's really, really easy to get started, and I want to show you a couple of examples today. So I think a good place to start is or kind of a good way for me to frame this for you today, is to have a think about what you can do in your garden this season. So the first thing to think about is you reap what you sow. So if you're going to start seed saving, it's a really great idea to start from seeds. And that sounds a bit silly, but it's a really, really great way to get started, because if you grow from seedlings that you've bought, you can never really be sure where they've come from and what they've been treated with and the conditions under which they've grown. So they might have been grown in a hothouse, they might have been grown in a very different part of the country. So we like to start from seed, and I wanted to just give you guys a bit of apologies for this is all resting on a big stack of cookbooks. So hopefully I can make this work and it won't be too disorienting for everyone. But we start from seed, and I wanted to show you a couple of examples that I've got here. So this one here, up the end, the big sort of purpley red pretty one, this is a bean seed and it's called the Scarlet runner bean. And this is one of my favorites. It's really, really well adapted to Canberra. It's the sort of thing, beans are the sort of plant that are really best grown from seed. They don't respond very well to being grown from seedlings and transplanted. So that's one of the sorts of seeds that we do a lot of. We've got some peas just here. And one of the things I wanted to show you here is the amazing variety. We think inside each and every one of these seeds is an entire new life. And so that's from these giant big bean seeds here. We've got some beetroot or silver beet seeds here. That's actually a cluster of lots of little different seeds in each one of those. We've got sunflower seeds. This is some red popping corn. And these are the tiny little lettuce seeds that I was talking about. So you can see this amazing variety. And I think one of the things that people find a little bit tricky about seed saving the first time around is actually getting started with planting seeds. And it can feel like it's a little bit intimidating if you haven't done it before. If you have done it before, you'll know that sometimes seeds work, sometimes they don't. And the best thing that you can do though is get hold of some seeds, and I can help you with that in a little bit in the questions if you'd like. Get hold of some seeds and just try planting them this season. Couple of rules of thumb: I always plant twice as much as I think I'm going to need. So you can find lots of guides. Canberra Seed Savers has actually got a YouTube channel. You can find You can find a guide to planting seeds on our YouTube channel. But I always like to plant twice as much as I think I'm going to need. And the only thing that I really think is worth kind of bearing in mind is that when you plant a seed, what's going to happen, and these ones are really great for this, you can see, hopefully, see that little white bit on that seed there? That's where the baby plant is going to come from, right? And what's going to happen is when you plant the seed, this hard coat, I couldn't break this seed coat if I tried. I'd probably need a hammer, to be honest. This hard coat, when it gets soaked with water, is going to open up, and from here is going to come the baby plant. And this seed has everything that the baby plant needs in it for its first couple of stages of life. It's going to throw down roots and send up its first leaves and its stem. And so when you plant seeds, you need to make sure that they stay moist so that that seed coat can break open and the plant has that water to start it germinating. When you plant seeds, as a rule of thumb, make sure that you pop them. It's important not to bury them too deeply in the soil, but it's also important that they have a little bit of covering. So I always make sure that they go into twice the width of the seed. So that means where we've got this seed here, I would plant it about that far under the top of the soil. Okay, so with those two tips, and bearing in mind that seeds germinate with water and warmth, so make sure that your garden is nice and warm, the soil is nice and warm, or start them in pots on a nice warm windowsill. With those three tips, I reckon you can get started this season, chuck some seeds in and see what happens. The most important thing to bear in mind is not to panic. Sorry, everyone. Sorry. I was a bit clumsy, wasn't it? The most important thing to bear in mind is don't panic if they don't work, put some more in and give it another go. So that's how you can get started this season. And the best things to get started with are the types of plants that we call self-pollinating. So I mentioned before that, you know, you can get a bit techie on this stuff. You can start to look at cross-pollination and how plants reproduce through pollination. But the best things that you could start with this season, if you haven't done it before, are the self-pollinating plants. They also happen to be some of the easiest plants to grow. So those are, the easiest ones are lettuce, peas, beans, and tomatoes, which is good news. And when you grow these plants from seed and you save the seed, what they do is they've got these flowers that are, they're called perfect or complete flowers. And they've got all of the parts of the flower contained inside for the flower to be able to produce a seed, okay? So lots of the time with a lot of different plants, we rely on pollinators, so insects or bees. We rely on the wind, for example, to pollinate corn. So the wind allows corn on different stalks to be able to pollinate, the silks to pollinate each other. But with these self-pollinating plants, so lettuce, peas, beans, and tomatoes, there isn't actually any pollination from an external source. And that means if you save the seeds from one of those plants and replant them the following season, you will get exactly the same plant again. And that means that you've had a really great experience of a really easy way of seed saving. So how do we actually do it then? And sorry, I've been talking a bit too much, so I'm going to kind of try and make this a little bit quicker. But how do we actually do it? So seed saving is really just the application of human creativity and intelligence in partnership with nature. Plants left alone are going to produce seeds. Okay, so if you just let things go in your garden, they're going to produce seeds. But the really serious, well, not serious, but the really important golden rule of seed saving is that, like I said before, you reap what you sow. And so when you're looking at plants that have set seed in your garden, what you want to do is make sure that you select the best plant. This is the human intelligence part, the best plant or the best fruit or the best bean pods, and save the seed from those. So the golden rule of seed saving, and this is the only bit of seed saving which I find really, really hard. The golden rule of seed saving is you can't actually take your first best tomato, the one that is absolutely perfect, you can't eat it. I'm sorry, it's terrible news. It breaks my heart every time I have to say it. You want to save seeds from those best examples of the plants that you've got. So if you plant some tomato seeds and, chuck the seedlings out into your garden come Melbourne Cup Day, and don't do it beforehand, there's more frost coming, I promise. Chuck them out into your garden come Melbourne Cup Day. When you get those first great tomatoes, like if you want early tomatoes, and when you get that really perfect tomato and you just think, oh, I want to slice it up and put it into my salad, what you actually want to do is let the plant keep going, let the fruit get really, really mature. Okay, so seeds draw their nourishment from the fruit that they're inside or from the plant that they've grown on. And so plants need to get really mature. So for beans and peas, they actually basically need to die and become dry and brittle. And for tomatoes, you want to leave that first best tomato that you're dying to eat straight away and let it get like a bit old. Let it get really mature. What you can do then, though, is you can still eat it. You can still eat it. You just scrape out the seeds and save them, and that's a whole other, session. And you're very welcome to come along to any Canberra Seed Savers sessions about that. And save those seeds, and then you can eat the rest of the tomato. But this is the golden rule of seed saving: save from your best plants, save from your best fruit, so that you get that again next year, so that you encourage the seeds to become what you want them to be, and you're saving from the ones that are absolutely the best. So I wanted to show you a couple of examples then. So tomatoes you want to let get really quite mature. Has anybody grown zucchinis? Got any zucchini growers here? Okay, has anybody grown zucchinis? I used to grow like 3 or 4 zucchini plants at a time. Never again. There's only ever 1 zucchini plant in my garden these days. Have you grown zucchinis and you've gone out in the morning, maybe before work or uni or whatever, and you've looked at the plant and you've thought, oh, that's a beautiful little zucchini. I'm going to have that one for dinner. You get home, you go out to harvest it, and all of a sudden you've got a submarine. I don't know if anybody, yep. I can't fit my hands in there to show you what I mean. So when you're saving seeds from plants like zucchinis and cucumbers and even pumpkins, what you want to do is let the fruit get submarine sized. Okay, you want big fruit, you want old fruit. If it's a zucchini or a cucumber, you want it to stay on the plant for as long as you possibly can until the skin is tough. Right, until you've got to kind of cut it open like a pumpkin. So those types of plants. The other thing that I wanted to show you guys is, and I've got a bit of a demo here, so I'm going to try and do this a little bit more smoothly this time. Let's see if I can make it happen. Can everyone see that? Yeah, that doesn't look too bad, does it? Okay, so that's what you do with things like cucumber and zucchini and tomatoes. But when it comes to other plants, does anybody recognize this plant here? See those flowers? So that's a rocket. These are rocket flowers, yeah? And what's happened, I'll start right down the bottom, is you can see some rocket leaves down here. This plant has decided to set seed, and so it's thrown up these really long stalks, and they've been covered in flowers, and the bees have been visiting them and pollinating them over the last couple of months in my garden. What's happening now is you can see on the stalks, we've got these, I'm sorry, it's quite tricky to see, these tiny little long things. These are the beginnings of the baby seed pods. So those are actually seed pods that are happening there. This one's got a much better example of one that's quite mature. So this is a quite mature bigger seed pod. These seeds are nowhere near ready. If I opened this up, you'd see that it's got some little seeds in there, but these are nowhere near ready to take off the plant or to save yet. So you can probably see that. And that's because they're not mature enough. So when you've got plants like herbs or greens. So this one is actually a pak choi. You can see the flowers that the pak choi had, and you can see, again, some seed pods. When they're green like this, they're still soft. The seeds inside are really immature, okay? Taking seeds out of this will mean that the seeds aren't viable and you can't grow anything from them. So what you want is this. So this is a different plant because I don't have any completely ripe rocket or pak choi at the moment. This is actually a type of radish. It's called Daikon. And you can see, in contrast to sort of the soft greenness of this one here, listen to this. Listen to how crunchy that is, yeah? So what we've done is we've left this on the plant until the pods have gone brown and dry like this. And you can see the seeds inside are super, super brown. Some seeds will be black, different colors, doesn't really matter, but they're hard, right? They're hard and they're dry and they're really mature. So these seeds are going to be absolutely fantastic. So the good news about seed saving then is that I've actually got a mate in Seed Savers who likes to say she became a seed saver because she's lazy. The good news about seed saving is that really all you want to do is make sure that you care for your plants and let them live out a really, live to a ripe old age in your garden. Let them have a happy, long life. And when they get to this point where you think, oh, that's dead, what you know is that it's just ready to start its next life cycle. Okay, so that's the second thing that I wanted to help you guys to kind of visualize with seed saving. Another example of this, and I'll only go for another 5 minutes. Another example of this is a bean. Okay, so you can tell this has gone well past the point at which you were going to eat it, right? So you really do. These came off the plant looking like this, and the plant was basically dead. Okay, and what it means, again, you can hear that crackling. Yeah, what it means is that the seeds inside are fully mature, and once again, really, really tough and hard. Okay, they're ready to keep that baby plant safe until the next season when you want to plant them again. Okay, so you want to make sure that your plants, your pods, here's another example actually. So this is from a chive plant. It's a bit hard to see, so I'll try and hold it still. Can you see there? So these were the flowers at the top of a chive plant. Again, it's sent up stalks and has heaps of flowers on top of it. And you hopefully can see there the little black specks inside the flowers. So those are the seeds, right? And this happens with all of the onion plants. They all send up something a bit like this. And so you can see there that if you let it go, you basically allow the plant to do what it needs to do and produce those seeds. So what do you do now? Well, if you were a much more patient person than me and dealing with smaller quantities than I usually deal in, you could sit here and pick each of those seeds out of that plant. Or you could sit here and crack open each of these pods and pull out each of the seeds and set them aside really nicely. I'm not patient. I'm very, very lazy. So that is not an approach that I generally take. Instead, what I prefer to do is, and you can do this if you've got heaps, you can actually, like, seeds when they're ready are really hard, okay? They're hard to damage, so you don't have to worry about it too much. You can get really, really rough. So what I've done here is just break up a whole heap of pods of that Daikon radish. And then one of my favorite tricks with seed saving, and it's a lot of fun to do, is to separate. What we want to do is separate the seeds from all of this, okay, from all of this organic material. And the easiest way to do that is the process that we call winnowing. And if you've got, like, if you've got a really good wrist for this sort of stuff, what you can do is actually toss the bowl up in the air where there's a slight breeze moving across. And these bits, which are so much lighter than the actual seeds, will just get blown away. So you can see a bit of that happening there, hopefully, because we do actually have a bit of wind today. I like to, though, actually use breath winnowing because it's a really fun process. So this is one of the reasons I'm sitting outside today. Last time I did this talk, I was at my kitchen table and it took a long time to get all of this stuff off my kitchen floor. So what I'm going to do is basically just shake the bowl so that the seeds which are heavier fall to the bottom, okay? And then I'm going to blow on the top of this organic material. And now I've got it all over my laptop, but that's cool. But you can see what's happened there is better than my kitchen floor, that's for sure. You can see what's happened there is that because all of this dry material is so light, just by a little bit of blowing on it, we've been able to separate most of it out from the rest of the seeds. And that's important because the more organic material that you have left in this kind of seed collection, the more chance you have of the seeds getting infected so things can rot. So just a little trick that I wanted to show you. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to get kids doing. And I guess I probably would be thinking of wrapping it up there, I think. I just wanted to, I guess, really encourage everyone to have a go at growing from seed and seed saving this season. By seed saving, you actually create this amazing abundance that you can share with your family and friends. You can come and get involved in Seed Savers, and you know, we share seeds across our network. You can meet some really interesting, fun people who are also super keen gardeners. We share lots of tips and knowledge about our experiences in gardening, and it's a really great community to be a part of. And if you haven't got any seeds to share, you can come along and take some of the ones that other people have donated, because honestly, we have an abundance of seeds that we want to share, and hopefully we'll get you hooked. I've got to warn you, it's a little bit addictive. Hopefully we'll get you hooked, and you'll be keen to, you know, really get into that adventure of seed saving yourself. So get started this season. Peas, beans, lettuce and tomato. You won't have to worry about any of the technicalities about cross-pollination or anything like that. Super easy to do, and I've actually put a link to a quick and dirty seed saving guide in the comments, so you can delve into a bit more detail on what I've been talking about. So I might stop there, Barbara, if that's okay, and I apologize for going a couple of minutes over.
No, that was great. Very, very inspirational. It really looks like just about anyone can do this. And from my experience, I have better luck at my plants going to seed than I have with them actually producing very much. So, so are there any questions out there? I've got one. But it would be nice if we've got any. I didn't see any in the chat as such. There were some nice comments. So anybody want to raise their hand? Trish, have you got a question? Go ahead.
Yes, I was just thinking, what sort of soil do you put it in? Does it have to be special to put a seed in?
Yeah, that's a really great question. When it comes to the main thing to think about is that a seed has the food for the very first part of the baby plant's life. But after that very first stage, the plant is going to have to make its own food. Okay, and so what it's going to need for that is sunlight, water, and a good medium to grow in. I like to put lots of compost in with my soil, and when I'm direct sowing seeds out into my garden, I try to make sure that the soil's nice and light and fluffy and has lots of composted organic matter in it. But I also start lots of seeds in pots. And put them in my glass house, because to be honest, the ground is just still too cold for a lot of things. Okay, you could put peas in now, no worries, and lettuce, but lots of other stuff, it's just too cold, it won't thrive. So I just try to use a good seed raising mix for smaller seeds, and a good potting mix for larger seeds. But you can get it at any nursery. There's actually a great mob who makes stuff out of yass called Martins. They're the ones I go to. But, you know, there's any good potting mix will do you fine. And, you know, like composting is everybody's friend. Composting is the best thing you can possibly do.
That's great. That's great. Are there any other questions? Well, I just have one to finish, or one comment. Is there a problem? I see a problem with this tomato scenario of the best tomato, because what if the next tomato is the best tomato? I mean, do you ever get to eat any of them?
Yeah, it's a little bit of trial and error, but yes, I think that's part of the fun of it, is, you know, just giving it a go. So
yeah. Sounds great. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll go on to the next speakers. I've got a little bit of an intro for them. Okay, so the next talk is presented by Hannah Ford, Project Officer for the Sea Change Group, Society, Environment, and Economy Change, and Isobel Bender, who's an ANU undergraduate in the Fenner School of Environment. Over the last 3 months, these two have been developing a project to support people to collaborate respectfully with the Ngunnawal. And today they're going to take us on this journey of just how we can get into this direction. Thank you, Isobel and Hannah.
Thank you, Barbara. First, I'd like to start the presentation by acknowledging that we are speaking on Ngunnawal country. And we are grateful for the knowledge that Wally, a Ngunnawal elder, has shared with us, and the time that he's given to supporting us in this project.
Awesome. And yeah, I'd like to thank Barbara and Tim, especially for inviting us to speak and present our, I guess, cultural learning journey. And thank you to everyone who's attended and eager to hear a little bit about, Izzy and I's story and in this. So thank you for being here. I guess, we wanted to start with a bit of who we are. I'm Hannah. I'm, as Barbara mentioned, one of the project officers at Sea Change, and have been involved in, volunteer and work in the not-for-profit sector for a while now, and very passionate about climate justice and the power of grassroots activism and community connection in creating positive societal change. So.
And I'm Izzy. I'm an undergraduate student at ANU. I primarily focus on environmental policy and resource management. And recently I've become interested in how local communities can sustainably manage the environment, or how to reconnect people to the local environment around them. I'm so thankful that I've been able to work on this project with Hannah. It's been a wonderful journey so far. So what exactly are we doing? As Barbara said, we've been working on a project to support Sea Change and its members to collaborate respectfully with Ngunnawal mob. Now, this is obviously a very specific project, and we're just going to say briefly how we came to be working on a project like this. On my end, I did a course at the start of this year at ANU called Indigenous Cultural, Natural Resource Management. And for me, it was the start of learning about Indigenous culture and principles of Indigenous culture. I didn't really get much of that at school, and I'd never really been in a position to learn about this. And it's been a matter of, once you start learning a little bit about Indigenous history and culture, you realise how little that I knew about the Indigenous peoples, and that I didn't want that sort of learning journey to end at just this one course. So it only scraped the surface. So I approached my tutor in that course, the wonderful Kate, who I think is in the presentation today, in the audience today, and just basically said, please, can I keep on this journey? I don't want it to stop here. And she was wonderful enough to take me on. And at that time, she'd also been approached by Sea Change, which is where Hannah comes in.
Yeah, it was very well timed, actually. Yeah, and because at the same time, I guess I'd similarly done a few courses on Indigenous management and policy issues at university, and also been involved with the Australian Youth Climate Coalition, who had worked closely with, well, who used to be the sister organisation, and they've now become their own Indigenous-led powerful mob, seed mob. So yeah, so I'd been somewhat involved and knew of the importance of respecting and engaging in this, and so I guess working for Sea Change, which is a very much community focused organization, thought it was a really great opportunity to actually start engaging as an organization with Ngunnawal mob, and start building that relationship, because can't do the work that we're doing, or it's not worthwhile if we're not actually engaging and working with those that we should be working with. So yeah, it's been a really great journey so far, learning that and having Sea Change join that that journey. Love that word. But yeah, and I think we found that central to this project and moving forward is that importance of relationships and making connections, building relationships, and that's been through each other. So Isobel and I, in this project, actually we'd met before, so that worked out quite well. But yeah, maintaining that relationship and working with each other, and then co-shaping, co-collaborating with Uncle Wally, as Izzy mentioned, and we'll mention a little bit later, and Wally and Sea Change as an organisation, and as well as Kate, the wonderful Kate, and Sea Change, and Izzy and I. So all these sorts of relationships that we found that were really important to build before actually engaging in a body of work, or a project of any description. It's first and foremost prioritizing those relationships. So yeah, it was a learning about how to, I guess, learning that it was the process that was important rather than the outcomes and deliverables, which for so long, I know, Izzy and I had discussed how different it was from research and producing, papers or meeting those deadlines, and the priority fell on those outputs rather than, how you actually got to that endpoint. So that's been something that we've that has differed a lot from what we were familiar with, is that focus on the process rather than the outcome. And if you're doing the process right, then who knows what the outcomes will deliver, but that's not what has been important. It's what you've put into the project and how you've gone about it. That was central to what this project has been about. Sorry, I'll stop rambling now and pass on to Izzy.
Wonderful. So what we're going to talk about in a bit more is just, and we keep using this word, but it does seem to stick, the cultural learning journey, but basically about how we started this project and how it's evolved and changed as we learnt new concepts or had the light bulb moments, and talk a bit about what it's starting to look like now. So when we originally started the project in sort of mid-June, And in hindsight, especially with what Hannah said, we definitely started being outcome driven. We had sort of a relatively clear idea of what we wanted for the project. It was going to be a workshop. It was centered around, I think at the time, applying Indigenous knowledge to water management. At the same time of when we went, all right, that's what the project is, we're going to start working on it, Kate had also given us some literature to read. And the literature focused on, they were both by Indigenous and non-Indigenous authors. And they were about sort of principles of not only Indigenous culture, but the way that some mobs approach knowledge, or in some cases how they approach research. There were also papers by non-Indigenous researchers talking about how they've collaborated with Indigenous peoples and the sort of challenges that they had, and the sort of pitfalls that they had and didn't realise when they started. So we were reading that at the same time that we were starting to implement the project. And I think it was about start of August, it's all blurring into one with lockdown, but start of August, Kate sort of gave us a very simple request and said, look, before we approach Wally, the Ngunnawal elder, think about what role you want sort of Indigenous peoples to have in this workshop. It's a relatively simple-ish question. And Hannah and I were sort of thinking about it on our own. And on our own, we both felt we were beginning to be really uncomfortable with thinking about that, about what role we wanted Wally to play in the workshop. And when we came together, we sort of articulated that it felt like we were treating Indigenous peoples as an input into the project, sort of an afterthought after we've created the project. And it didn't feel like that it wasn't centering building relationships as we were starting to read about, and what we now think is the importance of the project. And yeah, it didn't feel like we were genuinely collaborating with Ngunnawal mob. So we sort of had to take a step back and rethink about what we wanted to do with this project.
And yeah, and I guess it was here that we started thinking more about how this project could be an opportunity to start forming that genuine relationship with Wally and Ngunnawal mob and sea change. So instead of approaching Wally with this predetermined idea of a project, we wanted to and yeah, greatly led by those, or greatly shaped or supported by those readings and our discussions with Kate. The importance of first developing a relationship with Wally and determining whether he was actually interested in collaborating with Sea Change at all, and two, I guess, how Sea Change and Ngunnawal mob might work together in a way that was mutually beneficial. So not just what Sea Change could get out of it, but how Sea Change could support Wally in the amazing things that he was doing, and how we could make that a very mutually beneficial project.
And that was our big, still is our very big, oh yeah, gosh, we've got to think about this differently. So the next scary step was actually to talk to Wally, and that I was to do that, and I will be very honest with you, and I was utterly terrified, and took me about an hour of working myself up to call him, mainly because I was scared of making a mistake. I was scared of saying something that was disrespectful, that I wouldn't be able to convey that we were genuinely wanted to work with him and work from the get-go, and I was sort of worried that I wasn't going to be able to convey that. But again, speaking to the point about the importance of building relationships, it's just a conversation. It was the phone call. The purpose of the phone call was not for me to get a yes or no answer or to get that agenda. It was having a conversation with him, getting to know each other, and that was what the point of the phone conversation was. And I actually had to make that adjustment in my head because especially I'm in a university head mindset at the moment. You've got to get stuff done, you've got to micromanage and all that kind of stuff. And I sort of had to let that bit of myself go, and ended up having a wonderful conversation with him. He's an absolute delight to talk to. And while I was talking to him, I sort of, and this is something we've had sort of during the project as well, there's that sort of clash between two different approaches, the one of building relationships and the one of focusing on deliverables or outcomes. Because if you think about building a relationship or a conversation, for example, I like to think of it as a river, sort of flows to and from. It doesn't necessarily have a strict direction, but it will get there eventually. But the importance of it is to let it flow. And then when you start to try and get like a deadline or timelines, or this is what I want out of it, it's like trying to straighten the river, and you sort of lose that natural connection that you're forming with someone. But I still have those deadlines. Like I need those, and I am being assessed if this is part of ANU, and I have timelines. So that's definitely something, is a lesson that I've learned that I didn't think I would realize. That sort of when you start trying to change the way that you approach something, you're still working within a system that has a very different sort of motivation. And yeah, that's still, I find that quite challenging. But
and yeah, and I guess coming into those, because we've had a series of meetings now with Wally, and it's been that similar sort of balancing act between these deadlines and things that we've got, because I've sea change on the other hand as well, having to meet deadlines and then on the other hand, making sure the conversation still remained fluid. And that was a beautiful analogy of a river, and it narrows if you've set some kind of agenda to it in a way. And learning that it's very important to keep those conversations fluid and ensure that there is space, and you're offering space for those conversations to continue, rather than having those set agendas. And that was a really interesting learning, but funny for Izzy and I going into it, because Wally has been amazing. Like we've learnt so much from him already, and listening to the stories that he's open and has shared with us, and Ngunnawal culture and traditional protocols has been fantastic. And we might not have had those opportunities or those learnings had we been very strict and agenda focused from the get-go. So making sure that we were able to keep that conversation fluid and open to those sorts of conversations was really amazing. But also, I guess with that is being transparent about, we do have certain deadlines that need to be met, and those boring, disgusting logistics and details of the actual project, and working out when things were going to happen and things, to making sure that they were actually being what's the word?
met.
That we were doing that we were meeting those logistical details and getting that down on paper. So I guess out of that, we've created a bit of a fun little project, and that's taken the form of and will take the form of a series of yarning circles, sort of based around cultural awareness, which is something that was really and is really important to Wally, about building up that knowledge and awareness of Ngunnawal culture, which we're really grateful that he can provide and share through these yarning circles, and then also I guess provide a bit of an insight into the core principles of engaging, and I guess the role that Izzy and I are playing is taking responsibility for those, as non-Indigenous people, to take on those learnings and not leave it up to Indigenous peoples to share. And so we'll be facilitating those yarning circles as a way of taking on that responsibility. But yeah, at the same time, you know, only sharing those sorts of principles that have come out of our own learnings and those readings, and making sure that we're not speaking for or on behalf of Ngunnawal mob, because that would not be respectful, and respecting Wally in all that he's providing as well, and offering to this project. And when we sent out the EOIs, the expressions of interest, a couple of weeks ago now, I can't even remember, but we were overwhelmed by the great responses that we received, and the number of people interested in actually taking on this responsibility as well. And I think one of my key or exciting things about reading through the responses was the amount of people that were, you know, eager to do similar sorts of projects, or to start engaging with Indigenous peoples, but wanting to do it in a respectful way, and in a way that was respectful. So it was really amazing to see that shine through, and see people taking responsibility.
We were expecting, you know, 10 people, and we got 35 or 36 or something like that. So we were so, we were gratified to know that this is something that other people also recognize, that there is a need to start learning this, and there's a need to take that responsibility and take the opportunities when they're there. And what I thought was interesting, and what I really loved from some of the responses that we received, is that there were some people who did have experience with engaging with Indigenous peoples, not with Ngunnawal mob, but with other mobs, yet they still recognised and saw that there was a need to keep on learning, and that that they wanted to learn about Ngunnawal mob, because I guess it's another thing that we've learnt, that and you may have noticed we say the term Indigenous peoples. It's in recognition that it's not Indigenous people, they're not a sort of homogenous group of people. There are many diverse cultures and peoples with their own histories, their own traditional protocols, their own practices and ways of connecting with country, that just because you have an experience with mob doesn't mean that you automatically know how to interact with all Indigenous peoples. And it's something that Wally has made very clear with us, that how we're working with him and the expectations that he has doesn't mean that that's the same for other Indigenous mobs. But the key learning thing is that the principle of respect, and that again, we keep saying, centering, building that relationship is what's at the key to respectfully and genuinely collaborating. We've obviously thrown a lot at you. This presentation only scrapes the surface of what we've learned, and there's lots of we were even saying when we were drafting this, all these sort of things that we're slowly learning, but we haven't quite articulated that switch or that what we've learned. And we absolutely recognize that we are at the very beginning stages of this journey. There is so much to learn, but it is such a crucial journey that we've started, and we hope that by sort of telling people about it and by doing these yarning circles, that we're opening that conversation and increasing that awareness that it is our responsibility just to start learning about the traditional custodians of First Nations of this land that we live on. I need a drink of water.
And we did want to, I guess, conclude by just thanking Kate Harridan. Someone's asked who Kate is. Kate is, I guess, well, mainly Izzy's mentor, but has also been a great mentor for me through this project. I don't know, Izzy, if you want to.
I mean, if Kate wants to
or if
introduce
Kate,
herself afterwards, yeah, but yeah, she PhD candidate at ANU. Yeah, absolutely wonderful. But I'm just going to keep talking about you, Kate. But and we also want to thank Brooke, the director of Sea Change, for sort of letting this project be a possibility. And yeah, I think someone also mentioned if it's too late to sign up. Hannah, do you want to talk about that?
It is absolutely not too late, and actually we do want to offer offer this opportunity to those that are here, because I guess we've just given a bit of a rundown of where we're at right now, and so if you would like to send me an email, I will forward you on the details, and absolutely not too late to apply. We thought very well timed with this presentation, or this opportunity to talk, because we're still getting the registrations in and organizing all of that, so hopefully we've inspired a couple of people to join us as well. I know a couple of the people on this call have joined already, so that's fabulous. But if anyone has any questions or anything that they'd like to ask, or reflections or anything, I know that there was a lot in that, but it's been fun. It's been very fun, and grateful
so
that we've been able to do this.
Well, this is great. Thank you so much for sharing this. And just this, as someone commented, this emphasis on relationships and not deliverables. And I can certainly, that's so refreshing from someone who's been in industry and has had deliverables, not on the week, but on the day. So yes. This is great. Now, just one little clarification is, are these yarning circles, they're going to, it'd be Wally that's actually going to be at the yarning circles, or somebody else from the Ngunnawal mob, or is it only that you guys will be running these? How is that?
So Hannah and I will be facilitating the yarning circles, but Wally will be within the yarning circles as well. But so I think the other thing, I mean, my understanding of yarning circles, and there's definitely different applications and understanding of them, but the idea is that you're all sort of teacher and learner. We're not giving a lecture or anything like that. It's sort of a chat.
Yeah, great. And my other question, which I don't want to nominate, but I'll open it up pretty soon. These readings you said were very valuable. Are there any one in particular or something that you could, put up on send us in on our website or something? Have a think about it, and if you can think about one or two that you think would be useful, then you can send it to me, and I'll get it up on our Facebook pages.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's thank you actually for bringing that up, because I guess in addition to, well, we do recognize that committing to these yarning circles and then the workshop at the end can be a lot, and everyone's got lives and lots of things on, but and we do want to be making these readings and these learnings available to as many people as possible. So again, if you are interested, we will be developing a set of reading packages that go out prior to each yarning circle, and we of course want to open that up and that opportunity for those learnings beyond just the people involved in the project. So if you're interested in at least keeping up to date with the readings, but being involved in the readings and in the project in some capacity, again, flick me an email, and And I am more than happy to, to share those readings with you as we go through the weeks. So
Great, thank you. Okay, so are there any other questions that people want to put in chat or directly here? So, any other questions? I should check. Hannah, you've been looking at the chat, I guess. So, well, what's that?
I didn't see any others.
Okay, all right. Well, if that's the case, I want to thank all the speakers. Wonderful hearing about this, and I'm so glad we were able to arrange this in some way, even though we couldn't be there in person. At least we've started this relationship, which I think is great. So I'd like to thank everyone who came, and very much again, thank you the speakers, and put in a plug that these series of talks is running for the next few weeks. So it'll be all on this link next Saturday, same time, same place. I'll see you then. Bye.
Thank you, Barbara.
Good work, Hannah. Good work, Izzy.